Good morning. It's a beautiful morning. Today, I want to take you through a little bit of a journey. So, the first half of our talk today may be a little cerebral, but I promise you there's going to be a beautiful dessert at the end. I want to get into a conversation in the aftermath of October 7th. And in relation to the Jews, to Israel, I want to share a fascinating story from a diary that was written by the Lubavitcher Rebbe. And what's amazing is it captures a theme that's connected with this week's Torah portion. And the diary sheds light on the ongoing struggle between Israel, the West, and radical Islam. Yes, we're going to go there today. So it's September 11th. It's amazing. I mean, September 11th became a date, an infamous date, but it's September 11th, 1941. The world is swimming in Adolf Hitler's bloodbath. In a few days, the Germans will capture Kiev, the capital of Ukraine, and they're going to massacre 100,000 innocent Jews in a ravine named Babi Yar. You may have heard of Babi Yar. On this day, September 11th, 1941, in Arlington, Virginia, the U.S. Department of Defense starts construction on its new headquarters, the Pentagon. On that same day, a middle-aged new immigrant to the shores of the United States, Rabbi Schneerson, later to become known as the Lubavitcher Rebbe, writes an entry in his private journal concerning two traits that make for a moral and productive human being. The Rebbe writes that there are two traits that make for a moral and productive human being: fins and scales. Nobody imagines that 60 years later, exactly 60 years later, on 9/11, 2001, the free world would be struck again and radical Islamists would crash planes into the Pentagon that started being built exactly 60 years earlier. And the Twin Towers and murdering thousands, and a new era of global terror would descend on our planet. But let's go into the idea, the Rebbe's idea here. The idea that the Rebbe presented in his journal on this day, I think, is worth reflecting on. The Torah says in this week's portion that you may eat all of what is in the waters, everything that has fins and scales you may eat, the origins of kosher fish. But anything that has no fins and scales you may not eat. For a fish to be kosher, it has to have two signs. It has to have both fins and scales. There are many fish that have just fins or just scales, not so many that just have scales. But in order for a fish to be kosher, it must have both fins and scales. The Talmud tells a fascinating fact that all fish that have scales also have fins and are thus kosher. But there are fish that have fins but do not have scales, and they are non-kosher. If so, asked the Talmud, we have to say it in a Talmudic voice. If so, asked the Talmud, the Torah could have been written only scales. Why did it also have to have fins? If every single fish that has scales also has fins, then it should have just said scales, and we knew, obviously, that fins would go with it because every single fish that has scales has fins. If a fish that has scales inevitably has fins, why is there a need for both signs? A typical but proper Talmudic question. The Talmud answers with the Seid in the Talmudic sing-song. That's why rabbis always speak in a sing-song, the Seid in a Talmudic sing-song. Said Rabbi Abahu, and so it was learned in the study house of Rabbi Ishmael. This is so that the Torah should be increased and made great. That's the answer. This is so the Torah should be increased and made great. Please tell me how this answers the question. A strange answer. Where's the logic in presenting fins as an identifying sign of a kosher fish when it's totally irrelevant and inconsequential, since scaled fish inevitably have fins as well? How does this make the Torah greater? Also, if I can add to the question, why are fins and scales the characteristics that distinguish kosher fish? What's so special about these two identifying signs to deem fish suitable for Jewish consumption? Here, let's get into some of the mystical elements. The rabbis, the mystics, teach that the physical attributes of fish, and for that matter of all animals, reflect their psychological and spiritual qualities. I'll say it again. The physical attributes of fish and all animals reflect their psychological and spiritual qualities. And they explain that the food a person consumes has a profound effect on her psyche. Each one of us, when we eat, they say what you eat becomes you. You are what you eat. But the sages go further to say it has a profound impact on your psyche. So when one eats the flesh of a particular creature, the personality of that creature affects the person in some way. The personality of the creature. So they say that fins and scales embody two qualities embedded in the souls of these types of fish, necessary for the healthy development of the human character. And when we consume the substance of such fish, we become a more kosher, or better, kosher meaning clean or refined, we become a more refined human being. Because we consume fish lacking these characteristics, it may dampen some of these vital qualities. And so by making the signs fins and scales, it's creating a healthy development of human character. I want to go a step further. I hope you like fish, because we're going to dive deep into the waters today. Scales. Scales are the armor that shields and protects the body of the fish. Scales represent the quality of integrity, which protects us from falling prey to the many pitfalls that life presents. A person of integrity will not deceive their customers, despite the apparent financial profits that may be involved. That's integrity. A person of integrity will not tell a lie to a friend, despite the short-term comfort gained by doing so. A person of integrity won't cheat on their spouse, even if they have a tremendous temptation to do so. Integrity means that you have absolute standards of right and wrong, that you draw red lines, that you are committed to a morality that transcends your moods, that transcends your temptations. Integrity preserves and protects your life and your soul. That's scales. Now let's talk about fins. Fins are the wing-like organs that the fish uses to propel itself forward. What does it represent? It represents ambition. Ambition, a healthy sense of ambition, knowing one's strength and wanting to use our power, our strength in full. It gives us the impetus to traverse the turbulent sea of life and to maximize our God-given potential. It propels us to fulfill our dreams and to leave our unique imprint in the world. Now, let me ask you a question. Fins, scales. Scales, remember, integrity. Fins, remember, ambition. Scales, integrity. Fins, ambition. Here's my question. Which of these two qualities is more important to cultivate in life? Integrity or ambition? Fins or scales or fins? What ought to be the main function of education? Should we concentrate primarily on providing our children with the confidence, with the skills necessary for them to become productive and accomplished human beings? Or should we focus more intensely on raising children of high moral standing, concentrating more on how they will live and how they'll make a living? Integrity or ambition? And what does the Talmud say? Let's go back to the Talmud. The Talmud teaches that fish that have fins and scales, because some fish have fins but do not have scales, and because of that, they're not kosher. On a deeper level, this symbolizes the idea that a human being who possesses fins may still lack scales and remain non-kosher. You see the connection? That human being might swim and frolic through large seas, through oceans of talent, of genius. But the achievements may be corrupt, hurt others in the process. Creating ambitious and confident children doesn't guarantee their moral uprightness. It doesn't guarantee their integrity. And I would say in the 21st century, in the world in which we live, we've seen the result of people who have fins but no scales. We've seen it so clearly over the past 20 months. On the other hand, the Talmud tells us that all fish with scales have fins. I'll tell you what I learned from this. If you teach your children to approach life with truth, to approach life with honesty, with an unyielding commitment to morality, to decency, this child will certainly succeed and develop fins as well, regardless of their degree of intellectual prowess. They're going to find the fins with which to advance in their learning to advance in their achievements, to make the world a more beautiful place. So let's go back to the Talmud. If so, we say with our Talmudic voice, ask the Talmud, the Torah could have written only scales without having to also write fins. I think on a deeper level, the Talmud is asking, why is it important to emphasize the need for fins in developing a kosher, quote unquote, kosher human being? Why does an emphasis and ambition constitute part of a moral and kosher education? Why not just focus on integrity, focus on ethics? And I think the Talmud's answer is marvelous. What does the Talmud say? This is so that the Torah be increased and made great. What does that mean? This means that our spiritual mission consists not only of professing integrity and morality, but also developing our full potential materially and spiritually. God wants us to be good. God also wants us to be successful and to shine, to utilize all of our talents and resources to transform the landscape of our planet into a home, into an abode for the divine, to make the Torah great and large. The light, the majesty, the depth of the Torah should penetrate the entire world and turn it into an oasis of goodness and holiness. So let's go back. The events of September 11th, 2001, like the events of September of 1941. These are events that dramatically altered our worldview. They both ushered in a new era of violence, of bloodshed, of grief, of terror. The first was by the Nazis, may their name be erased. And the second was by radical Islamists, may their name be erased. Yet the roots of the two wars may be very different. The Germans, I'm going to go into this, the Germans personified a culture of possessing fins but no scales. Their ambitions, their achievements, the love of life was impressive. Yet their morality and their sense of ethics were horrifically skewed. They loved and nurtured their dogs. They appreciated poetry, philosophy, scientific advancement. They sent millions of innocent humans to die in the gas chambers. Doesn't make any sense. September 11th, on the other hand, was perpetrated by a people with a deep faith and a commitment to the will of Allah, yet with a hatred for all progress, for all advancement, and a desire to destroy all who do not adhere to their dark vision of the world. They died for what they believed to be the ultimate morality, in their words, the ultimate holiness. Yet, in my humble opinion, their perception of God is and was horrifically skewed. Theirs was a God who wanted them to die as long as they could kill others. People somehow delude themselves into thinking that Hamas and the people living in Gaza are two distinct entities, and that Hamas took control of the Gazans. They forgot that Hamas does not control Gaza. Rather, Gaza thinks Hamas. Hamas was elected by the people of Gaza in 2006. And more than 80% of Arabs living in Gaza and the West Bank support the murders of October 7th. Many young Muslims are being taught today to develop scales but no fins, to surrender their lives to Allah without appreciating the beauty, the love, the joy. It's a beautiful day. God wants you to live, not to die. God wants you to build a world, not to destroy it. God wants you to respect other people, not blow them up. To create a quote unquote kosher world, we need scales. But we have learned over the past 20 months, we also need fins. Muslim leaders, parents, educators, the world, we have to begin to teach our youth to love their own lives more than they hate the lives of others. To love their own lives more than they hate the lives of others. To discover that the love of God does not require the love of blood. And Israel and the Jewish people stand at the forefront of this conflict. This is not a time to back down. This is a time to stand loud and proud, to stand with unwavering commitment to the sacredness of life and the fight against those who gleefully want to see us dead. With clarity, it's our opportunity and our responsibility to call out the evil we're facing and to fight to eradicate it, to live in a world with fins and scales, to live in a world that's made up by the kosher fish. I was talking with someone this weekend at the JLI retreat, and I was telling him a lot of the time this weekend I spent mentoring university students. And it gave me a real opportunity to look at and to peer into what's going on with young Jews in this generation. And one of the things that I noticed is that we live in a fatherless generation. A lot of the students I was mentoring there, they either their fathers are not present or their fathers are not present. They're not physically present or not even emotionally present. It's a fatherless generation. And he told me something amazing. He had seen a study he was going to send me that he said that the researchers said that this generation is missing three fathers: their personal fathers, the fatherland, and the father in heaven. That they're missing that the father is supposed to be able to guide and give a certain sense of authority and integrity to a child. That's the job of the father, to teach, to educate. The fatherland, meaning a pride in the countries that we live in. And a father in heaven, meaning God. And he said these are the three fathers that are missing from our generation. And it's no wonder, perhaps, that we see what we see. So my blessing to you today is that we live in a world, a beautiful world. It's so easy to get caught up in the noise. It's so easy to get caught up in the headlines. But there are still waters beneath. And in those still waters beneath, there are beautiful fish. And those beautiful fish have fins and scales. And it's our job to find the scales and to find the fins in our life, to find the integrity and to find the ambition in our life. And we can do it. We can cut through the noise and we can find that integrity, that ambition. And it's our job to first change ourselves, and then we can change our families, and then our communities, and ultimately we can change the world. And yes, a single person can change the world. And there was the Rebbe writing this beautiful idea about fins and scales. At a time where now in hindsight we can see that the Rebbe had the foresight to say the world needs this, and today the world needs this message more than ever. I wish you a beautiful day and a Shabbat Shalom.